All right, welcome everybody to our November Zero Waste Task Force meeting. Thank you all for coming. My name is Courtney Williams. I am from WAS. We are talking tonight about the budget process, and we've kind of got an AMA, Ask Me Anything. So if you have any questions related to anything, when we get to the Q&A community discussion portion, feel free to ask them, and I will do my best to answer. So this is the agenda for tonight. We're going to, I'll do a little introduction into WAS. We've got a couple of announcements. Then I'm going to talk about the Westchester County budget process and what our approach is to that. I'm going to review the three Ps, like our like why incineration is bad and what the alternatives are to kind of arm you all to participate in that budget process. And then communally, we're going to take action by submitting a comment, public comment on the budget, and then we'll get to the meat and talk together, answering any questions that you might have. So, what is WAS? WAS stands for Westchester Alliance for Sustainable Solutions, and we are an alliance of community organizations from Westchester working to close the Wheelabrator Westchester Trash Incinerator that's operated by Win Waste Innovations here in Peekskill, the city where I live, where the bulk of Westchester County's garbage is burned, and it is Westchester County's largest industrial air polluter. So, just to make sure everyone knows, the announcement is that our December task force meeting is at a special time. So, because of holiday craziness and whatnot, we're moving it to 6 p.m. on the third Wednesday of December. As usual, it will be 1 hour. Our topic this time is really kind of a work session to set our priorities for 2026, and we would definitely like your input on that. So we encourage folks who are able to join us then. And this is going to kind of prepare us for our January Zero Waste Task Force meeting, which is going to be our year in review and the year ahead. And we're going to lay out our priorities for 2026. So this is where we're going to workshop those. So if you're free on the 17th, please join us. So we are deep into the 2026 county budget process. This is just a screen grab from the county's 2026 budget dashboard. So last week we had a public input session in Peekskill. We had a bunch of people attend and make public comment, urging the Board of Legislators to fund zero waste solutions in that budget. Tonight in Pelham is another session, and one of our community members, Ruby, is down there in person, again, pushing for those, urging the legislators to fund zero waste solutions. And coming up Wednesday, December 3rd at 7 p.m. at the county building in the Board of Legislators chambers is the public hearing, and we encourage everyone to join us. Last year, there was an option for virtual participation. Right now, that info is not on the budget dashboard, so we have inquired about what the options are for that. But a lot of us will be there in person. We'll be arriving at 6 p.m. to get through security and to sign up to speak, and it'll be the standard 3-minute thing. But the idea is that these public input sessions are where a bunch of the legislators are in attendance. So they're a captive audience, and they can hear from the community members about what their budget priorities are. And then on the 3rd of December, that is the public hearing on the budget. And they will then afterwards vote on that. So that's where we stand right now with the budget. Unfortunately, as you may know, in 2022, we did the same thing, participated in this budget process and asking the Board of Legislators to fund. We were at the time pushing for them to hire a certified zero waste consultant to make us a roadmap to get us off incineration. We were unsuccessful in getting funding for that, but they promised to prioritize zero waste. In 2023, they actually earmarked $90,000 in the budget, uh, in the DEF, Department of Environmental Facilities budget, for what they termed a waste reduction study. And we were, it was a step in the right direction, but not really what we wanted, which was a commitment to move to zero waste. They did nothing during the year of 2024. I'm getting my years mixed up. Um, but basically they earmarked those funds, and it's been 2 years. And we do not have the results of that study. And really nothing in the calendar year of 2024 was done as far as we can tell. Only in 2025, when the study came out, it was really poor. And we had a lot of people participate in the input sessions that were during work hours in White Plains, not accessible to Peekskill, the environmental justice community, not with advanced notice, not with good information for people to be able to provide substantive feedback, just really poor. And the survey product that they put out to get input from the community was really basic stuff that the answers are already known. Like, what is the barrier to you recycling? And it's like, well, if I have two AA batteries from my television remote and the receptacle in Westchester County to recycle them is Valhalla, where the household materials recovery facility is, I'm not driving my two AA batteries across the county to recycle these two batteries. So we know what the barriers are to recycling. We don't need to pay $70,000 to have someone conduct a survey about it. So after our feedback, they put another $20,000 into the study and they expanded it. And now we are talking about the 2026 budget, and we have no results from that study, which means no way to basically directly fund the implementation because we don't know what the recommendations are going to be. So when we attend the budget input sessions, what we're pushing for is for the Board of Legislators to figure out a way, find a place in the budget where we can be funding zero waste solutions. Because, and I'll go through this in the slides, we know what needs to be done. We already have diversion programs. We need to fully fund them and we need to expand them. So that's the goal for us in attending the hearing, is to remind them that it's been 2 years since they budgeted for this study and we're still waiting on results, and we can't afford to wait another year. This incinerator is one of the oldest in the entire country. The contract is up in 2029. If we're not going to act in 2026, we're basically just going to wind up delaying, and they can't keep kicking the can down the road with this aged piece of infrastructure. So these are some photos from the budget hearing that was in Peekskill last week, but we want you to do the same on the 3rd of December at the county building. We'll be arriving at 6 p.m. to get through security and sign up to speak. You'll have 3 minutes. They'll call your name. You'll go up to the podium. You'll have your 3 minutes to speak. And we have sample scripts. And Kaylin, if you can pop the link to that in the chat, if you all want to look at what we've put together, we've got, I think there's 4 different options focusing on different aspects of our opposition to the trash incinerator and the need for alternatives. We do believe it's going to be a hybrid meeting, as I said earlier, but we don't have the information on that yet. So watch your email. If you're signed up and you got this Zoom link via email, then you'll be getting the info and all the details. But we've made it easy with those sample comments that you are welcome to modify however you see fit. But just so you don't need to start from scratch, we'll provide those. So now I'm going to have Caitlin also drop this link in the chat, which is the link to our action network. So in addition to your making a comment at the budget hearing, you can use this form that we've set up for you to send a comment onto the record about about the need to fund these zero waste solutions. It's also going to go to the county executive, it's going to go to the Department of Environmental Facilities, and it's going to go to the members of the Board of Legislators to just really drive home to them just how many people do not want our waste burned and want them to be doing the fiscally responsible thing, the morally responsible thing, and moving towards zero waste solutions. And we'll keep putting this link in the chat periodically because I know we've still got some folks trickling in and we want everyone to be able to take action. Definitely, after you fill it out, hit the share button and share this with your networks on social media, via email, and get everyone in Westchester should be filling this out. And we can send a really strong message of just how many people are backing the Board of Legislators in their efforts to move us towards zero waste. And they have. They've done a great job, funding another compost pilot program, the zero waste, the single-use foodware ban, things like that. So we just need to keep it up and make clear to them we have their backs as they push for these solutions. So I mentioned the three Ps. You're going to be presenting your public comment to the Board of Legislators. Why is it? We just want to kind of remind you of the basics, like why we are not seeing incineration as a good solution and what the alternatives are. So bottom line, remember the three Ps. Incineration is bad for people, it's bad for the planet, and it's bad for our pocketbooks. So the incinerator is harming people. It is the largest industrial air polluter in the county. Westchester gets a D for air quality from the American Lung Association. Peekskill residents have increased rates of the health problems associated with air pollution, and the air pollution doesn't know to stay in Peekskill, right? So other communities in the river towns and even in Rockland and Putnam are going to be breathing in these emissions. It's bad for the planet. It is the largest industrial source of greenhouse gas emissions in Westchester County, and it is a massive source of greenhouse gas emissions, and it's worse than burning coal, really, for the amount of energy it produces. And then it's bad for our pocketbooks. Incineration is the most expensive way to manage waste. And I actually dug through the contract that was last renewed in 2019. The county, according to that contract, is paying Win Waste $28 million a year to operate this trash incinerator. That is a tremendous amount of money. Imagine what we could do in terms of building out zero waste solutions with $28 million a year. So, I'm a scientist, and when I think of air pollution, this is what I think about. I think about the nitrous oxides, the sulfur oxides, the particulate matter getting into our lungs, how it causes inflammation, it causes cellular damage, it can trigger asthma attacks, it can trigger cardiovascular problems. Peekskill has all of the high rates of all of those acute illnesses and long-term illnesses associated with air pollution. And every delay, every time they do not move towards solutions, we are just condemning another child to a life with asthma, another senior to a trip to the emergency room with a heart attack, another infant born at a low birth weight. It's wrong and it's not necessary. There are alternatives. We have them. We should use them. So this is one of the ways in which it is bad for people. But to really drive that home, and many of you probably have seen this before, New York State, with the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, wanted to figure out what communities are historically the most burdened with environmental impacts and the most vulnerable to them, meaning the least able to cope with them. And so they came up with this disadvantaged communities criteria, and that's what you're looking at here. So highlighted in purple is actually my census tract. And when you look, we have a higher environmental burden than 98% of census tracts in the whole of New York State. So what does that mean? When you look at the kinds of polluting industry and infrastructure, this and the impacts of climate change, so inland flooding and things like that, extreme heat. But you can see here, municipal waste combustors. This is where the incinerator is. We have a higher burden than 92% of census tracts in the state. And New York State, it leads the nation in trash incinerators. We have the most of any state. So we are carrying a tremendous environmental burden here in Peekskill. But what goes hand in hand with the harms that this is causing is the characteristics and the vulnerability of our population. So I told you we have high rates of all those things associated with air pollution. So asthma, COPD, heart attack hospitalizations, low birth weight. These are directly linked in the scientific literature to exposure to air pollution. But then if you look at our vulnerability, we have a lot of seniors, people with disabilities, people that don't have health insurance. This means they don't, if you're sick or you're already at risk, this is going to be the pollution is going to have more of an impact on you. But then additionally, there's this energy poverty cost burden score. So this is, can you afford to pay your electric bill, your energy bill? We are worse off, more vulnerable than 94% of census tracts in the state. And what that means is for me in the summer or spring or fall when the weather's nice and I have the window open, if I hear the incinerator venting, I get up and I close the windows. And if it's stuffy, I turn on the air conditioner. And I can do that because I'm lucky enough to be able to afford my energy bill. And I'm not having to decide between medicine or food and paying my electric bill. But some of my neighbors don't have that luxury. And so their calculus might be different. If they know they have trouble paying their electric bill, when they hear it venting, they might choose to just leave the window open rather than close up the house and turn on the air conditioner because of that cost. So this is where, my family potentially could be protected because I'll close those windows and run the air conditioner, whereas my neighbors won't be able to do that. So this is a choice that our county government made to site the trash incinerator here and expose this already vulnerable population to this pollution, and it doesn't have to be that way. So it's bad for the planet too because it generates a lot of pollution. So I pulled this graph from a paper, and the link is there. This is looking at kilograms of CO2 equivalents per kilowatt hour. So how much greenhouse gas is produced from this source of energy per kilowatt hour of electricity? Because Wheelabrator loves to tell us how much energy, how they make energy, their waste to energy. Well, they only power 60,000 homes, and we'd be better off with coal. So here's how much carbon CO2 equivalents is produced per kilowatt hour for municipal solid waste incinerators. Here's coal. And we all know coal is bad, it's polluting, etc. This is coal. We'd be better off burning this. Biomass is things like wood or manure, things like that. Oil, gas, and landfill gas. So they're breaking it down by different kinds of emissions of the different kinds of CO2. But overall message, we are not doing ourselves any favors by burning garbage for energy. It's tremendously polluting. And once you do burn it, remember, there's no away. For every 3 pounds of garbage that is burned at the incinerator, 1 pound of toxic ash is produced. And for the first several decades, all that ash was piled up in what locally we call the Frit Pit in Cortland. And that's what this mountain is that you're seeing. In the foreground is a ball field, and there's the kids' playground and the Sprout Brook that is part of Peekskill's watershed. And then here's millions of tons of toxic ash in a huge mountain monofill Frit Pit. So there is no away. It is bad for our planet. It pollutes our air, it pollutes our water, it pollutes our soil. And then it's bad for our pocketbooks. So again, incineration, the most expensive way to manage waste. So if you look here, this is from the World Bank, so they're breaking it down. We're going to be in the upper income countries, and we're looking at the cost to dump per US dollars per ton of garbage. And blue is the landfills. This rusty color is composting, anaerobic digestion, and then waste to energy. And you can see waste to energy across the board, the most expensive way to manage waste. This is not fiscally responsible use of our tax dollars. But what's the alternative? Well, here's the pie chart from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation looking at the composition of municipal solid waste. So let's just go around the pie, right? What can we divert in Westchester County already? Paper, we can recycle it. Metals, we can recycle it. Plastics, we could recycle a bit of it, but really we should just not be making it. And we are working with Beyond Plastics to pass laws in Albany to just eliminate plastics because we know recycling is a false solution. So we're trying to solve this one for the county. Glass, recyclable. Yard trimmings, compost it. Food scraps, compost it. Textiles, county has a program to divert it. Wood, we can divert it. And then whatever falls into miscellaneous. So basically, looking at this pie chart, we already have diversion programs for 90% about of what the count of what composes our municipal solid waste. There's no need for us to just be sending it all to the trash incinerator to burn. So that is the primer, and our sample comments have details laid out for you. You can just read, but we also have our fact sheet online and all of that. But this is just to keep it fresh in your mind. So one thing we need you to do, if you are, we are trying to meet with every single county legislator before the budget hearing. I don't think we're going to get to this goal with the holidays coming up, but we're working on it. And so on the next slide, I've got the map. So if you don't know your legislative district, you can look. But we are looking for constituents in these different legislative districts to request a meeting with their legislator to discuss zero waste and discuss the incinerator ahead of the budget hearing to again educate them and encourage them to do the right thing and vote to fund these zero waste solutions. So here's the legislative map. And we have already met with or have requests in with all of the legislators except for these four. So Ben Boykin, Jewel Williams Johnson, Terry Clements, and Shanae Williams. So if this is your district and you are willing to request a meeting with them, you can either email us, wasppeakskill@gmail.com, or you can even just put it in the chat with your email address and we'll reach out to you. We have a templated email you can send, so to make it easy, and you will attend the meeting, but we can do the bulk of the talking. You can talk about why it matters to you as their constituent, but then we'll have all the details, so you don't need to know that. Paul, go ahead.
Hey, Dr. Williams. I know that Ben Boykins is not going to be the legislator. It's Jen Pusha that's the legislator-elect for that district. So if anyone's in White Plains, I know she's currently a councilwoman for White Plains. It's citywide. So if anyone here is in White Plains, that could be a great strategic way to talk to her before she puts her hand on the Bible, gets sworn in.
Excellent. Yeah. So Ben, I guess, will vote on this budget, right? And then she'll be the legislator come January 1. Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Paul. Yeah, so that would be great for you to reach out to her and we can kind of get her prepped and educated on this issue before she even takes office. So if one of these folks is your legislator, reach out to us because we've otherwise got we think we've got the others covered. So we've really done a tremendous job, and it was thanks to other members of our Zero Waste Task Force, as well as our core group of volunteers, to be reaching out to their legislators. And everyone's been quite receptive when we've met with them. I think they appreciate getting, you know, a kind of quick rundown of this issue because they confront so many issues as legislators that it's hard for them to stay on top of every single one. So, with that reminder and another plug, 12/3, 6 p.m., county building. Be there, watch your emails. So, if you can't be there in person, you can participate with the hybrid option. Caitlin will drop that link again into the chat. You can even do it while we're on this call. Just click through. It just doesn't take a minute to fill out and send in a comment on the record for this meeting. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing so that we can just all look at each other and do our Q&A. So let me see. All right, Judy, thank you so much. I appreciate that. We've got a taker and and Elaine for Jen Pooja. Thank you so much. That's awesome. So we got two more covered. George, go ahead.
If we have diversion programs for 90% of the waste stream, is it that they're being underutilized?
So I think it's a combination of they're being underutilized and they don't have the capacity to accept everything. So, we have like if we just take food scraps. So if you remember back to the pie chart, like paper and food scraps would be like half of what's going in the incinerator. Paper, people are just not recycling it. They're just not sorting it out, separating it out for it to be recycled. They're just lumping it in, or businesses as well. With the food scraps, we have the residential food scrap drop-off program. So a lot of municipalities are doing a drop-off version, but it means collect it on your counter, or like at my house, what it means is collect it in the compost container on the counter. When that gets full, bag it up. And we don't want to drive every single time to the drop-off location, so I stick it in the freezer for a while. And once the freezer gets full of compost bags, we put them in a tote and drive them over and drop it off. So it's like probably like maybe twice a month we drive over there and drop it off. Well, that's a pain in the butt, honestly. And so not many people are doing it. And so some people are doing composting in their yard, which is awesome, but you can't do the bones or whatever like that. So what we need to do is make it easy. So if you look at the numbers, the municipality that composts the most, or that diverts the most food scraps, is Scarsdale. Is Scarsdale the largest municipality? No. Do they generate the most food waste? No. What's the trick? They have curbside compost pickup, meaning their residents can just stick it out on the curb, just like they do their garbage or their, metal recycling or whatever, and the truck comes and picks it up. So, so that's an example of like we just don't have the program built to the level that it needs to be in order to divert those things. And so we need, I mean, right now we have municipalities kind of leading the charge on that, but the way the county runs its waste is that most of the counties, 90% of the residents are part of the refuse disposal district. So it really could be that the county helps orchestrate a lot of this if they wanted to. And then for metal and glass and things like that, I mean, when I walk down the street in Peekskill, there's not a recycling bin. There's one garbage can, and people just put whatever's in it. I know that there's a lot of apartment buildings that the landlords aren't providing recycling receptacles and things like that. So the programs are there. They need to be expanded and they need to be better used and the recycling laws and things like that enforced. So it's just, I mean, I think it points out that we're not reinventing the wheel. It's not like something really, brand new needs to happen. We just need to build this infrastructure out. Other questions or comments or ideas or anything?
Hi,
Laura,
Courtney.
hi.
Hi. I love what you're talking about. And yeah, well, it seems like there could be perhaps a coming together around with people who want to imagine a zero waste future. And then maybe we can just get together this year, make our phone calls to our legislators, stick with the plan, but maybe build momentum for next year. Because I was thinking when it comes to figuring out this, how to make zero waste, maybe they just, I'm sorry about the blinding light, maybe they just didn't have the creative bandwidth. And maybe it'll be more of a community exercise, for example, getting together, remake, retake, and the composting people in Cortland, and all the people who are
Hmm.
already doing this. And then getting them together with recyclers, maybe people representing students, maybe people representing the restaurant industry, maybe some grocery store owners, maybe some, you know what I mean, to just sort of,
Hmm.
what would
Yeah, I mean,
work.
I think if you remember back when we were pushing for the zero waste consultant, the idea was we didn't get the existing waste system that costs us $28 million a year with
Yeah.
volunteers. you
Yeah.
know like and a community group or whatever. We had civil servants, we had lots of money and resources, we had all the elected officials working together to come up with that solution. And
Yeah.
if we're gonna change it and come up with an alternate, we need that same mobilization. We're
Yeah.
not gonna change this massive waste system with volunteers. And so
Yeah.
we were pushing for a zero waste consultant that knew all of these solutions and how they get implemented that
Uh-huh.
could come make the roadmap. And we didn't
Oh,
get
okay.
that. We got a waste reduction study, which as a
Yeah.
scientist, we joke that 3 years in the lab will save you 3 hours in the library. Meaning, if someone's
Yeah.
already done it, if you don't do your homework and you don't go look at what's already known, you could be wasting your time in the lab redoing
Yeah.
experiments to answer questions that are already known. And that seems really what this study is. And I think it's also a delaying tactic to prevent having to take action. So they're like, oh, yeah, we're doing something, we're studying it.
Right.
Whereas we don't need to study it. We know you need to actually do something.
Uh-huh.
But we were talking, one of the priorities that we were thinking of for 2026 was kind of a county-wide waste summit and like a
Yeah.
day-long event,
Exactly.
kind of sponsored by some of our leader organizations in the county, like maybe George is here and Paul from Sierra Club, maybe
Yeah.
Federated
Yeah.
Conservationists of Westchester,
Yeah.
WAS, and kind of get everyone together in a room and like invite the county, invite Peter McCart, invite Ken
Exactly.
Jenkins,
Exactly.
invite DEF, present what's the problem, what are the solutions,
Yeah.
and how do we get there? And
Yeah.
like kind of explicitly show them again. We've had programs about this.
Like
Like one of our
this.
kickoff programs was like a roadmap to zero waste. But again and again, we'll keep educating and basically like get them to open their eyes to the fact that this is not an insurmountable problem. Other communities have done it. The solutions are there. We just need the political will to get it done. So that is an idea that we have had simmering that we're thinking of doing for 2026. So if
Ye-
you are game,
Yeah.
we'll
Well,
count you in.
yeah, I think it sounds like a fun, and I'm thinking maybe if we can make it fun, they're probably thinking, is this translating to votes? I mean, that might be one of their questions. So, maybe if it's just something, look at this great future we're moving towards. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? Like, this is where the money's going to be going, not towards
Yeah.
funding that thing. Like, maybe,
Right.
you know what I mean? Just make it more, and
Yeah,
maybe,
I mean, because that's the thing we have a white paper that we commissioned that basically that it found that going to zero waste could generate over 1,000 jobs in the county.
Absolutely.
If you look on Win Waste's website, they say the incinerator employs 65 people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Come on.
It's
Let's not have jobs that are hazardous to the workers' health and hazardous to our health. Let's
right.
have some better jobs.
Yeah, it
So,
seems like these extractive industries often it concentrates wealth and fewer jobs. Like a more circular situation is more jobs. And maybe, that could convey as more votes potentially to somebody looking to get elected and who has a conscience, you know, make it,
agreed.
hope. But I like your timeline right now, we got to call our legislators and then in next year having a summit. That sounds good.
Yep.
That sounds really
All
good.
right. Nick has his hand up.
Hey, Courtney, everybody else.
Hello.
Let me get out of here. My daughter's starting to make noise. I was just curious, talking about these things with, the budget, considerations, how much money they want to put into things and, forcing people maybe rather than looking for volunteers. What discussions in the past have you had around maybe taking like a taxing approach, carbon taxing or waste taxing, to, compel municipalities from the top down, perhaps to, be financially incentivized to institute more programming? Because seems like it's a uphill battle from what I've learned of this timeline and the actions that have been happening to actually get the county to be nudged along to do anything really substantive. You cited the plastic ban, but some of the businesses that were like supportive of it in Mount Kisco, where I used to work, they would still try and hand me plastic every time I went there. So it's like it's nice in theory, but the sort of enforcement and action behind it is a little bit toothless without some of those more powerful incentivizers behind them, like a tax on the municipality or residents or whatever, and then an incentivizing to institute different measures that alleviates that, maybe in some kind of structured progressive ladder that they can take, and maybe that generates revenue to have that actual zero waste specialist come in and be the person who guides these communities through that to work through that progression or whatever, or some kind of program like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Taxing is an effective measure. Obviously it's not popular. This is the last person was just talking
Yeah.
about getting votes, but it's definitely a really strong incentivizer.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think one of the other things that we started working on is kind of a municipal primer that we could go and like present to municipal groups to lay out, because I think a lot of them don't understand the waste system here in Westchester. I would guess a lot of them don't realize their garbage is going to the incinerator. So we want to lay out kind of like I did a quick primer for you all, but then add in the layers of like how do you go about implementing the solutions if you're a municipality. So there's programs like it's called SMART, Save Money and Reduce Trash, where instead of just rolling your garbage pickup into your residential taxes, you actually buy trash bags. And like it, if it costs $5 to dispose of this much garbage, I'm going to pay $5 for this bag. And so everything I put in it,
The pay as
like
you
if I
throw
if
kind
I
of concept.
yes, it's also
Right.
called pay as you throw. And so it's like, if I have to pay $5 for this, but I know I can recycle this and compost that and reuse this and donate that, you're going to basically save money directly because you're not having to buy another trash bag. So like solutions like that, or BYO, like bring your own options, like how could a municipality incentivize that, things like that. So working with like kind of the from municipal up to county while we continue to pressure the county. But I worry because the incinerator is just upstream from Indian Point Nuclear Power Plant. And Indian Point was running way past the lifespan for which it was designed. And it was failing, it was leaking, it had all kinds of problems. And everyone just put their head in the sand and pretended it was always going to be there. So we're not building renewable energy. We're not building out other jobs. We're not doing anything. We're not planning ahead at all. And then when the corporation that ran it decided it wasn't making money anymore, they just walked away and left the municipalities high and dry, left the workers without jobs, etc. And now we literally have a massive contaminated site. So I feel like the same thing is in the works for Wheelabrator. The county wants to pretend the problem is solved. They just want to kick the can down the road. But the average age that an incinerator is retired is 24 years. This incinerator in January will be 42 years old. Like, we cannot keep going at this rate. We need to be, it's fiscally irresponsible. So I think we might be able to also press them like, if you don't plan ahead and something goes wrong, and all it would take would be one fire. We had an elected official from Doral, Florida, on who their incinerator caught fire, and that was it. It was done, and no repair, no rebuild, just incinerators done. And what is the county going to do if that happens? What is Peekskill going to do if that happens? We get money from them in a pilot agreement that is a not insignificant chunk of our county taxes. What are we going to do? We need people planning ahead. And then there are solutions at the state level, like the carbon credits, cap and invest, and things like that. The incinerator industry is really strongly fighting against those and lobbying hard to avoid being held to account for those.
Yeah,
So does that
well,
answer your
not just
questions
not
or?
just them. A lot of industries who would be, penalized under emissions rules with that, but which is a shame because that is such a powerful tool. I come from California and managed programs for DACs there that did incredible work and still do through the climate California Climate Investments Initiative. And Canada has been doing it for years, so it's
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah, to answer my question, it's just, yeah, it's a tough problem, obviously. I mean, at, at the high level, we're just fighting against the nature of our American society and consumerism and overproduction. And
Mhm.
it's like, wow, if there was something we could do to revolutionize our whole conception and relationship to, being consumers and waste and consumption, that would be really the change we need. But yeah, no,
Absolutely.
appreciate your answer and thanks for that. And I will certainly
No
be
problem.
doing what I can to support your efforts here in the near term on
Awesome.
the county side.
Thank you, Nick. Appreciate it. Paul, your hand is up.
Um, the question I wanted to ask is the current contract, when does it officially end? And when do you think that a plan should be made? Because one thing that I discovered that in New York City, every 20 years they create a solid waste management plan. And it's up for review next year. It's going to be done. Last time it was done was 2006 when Bloomberg was mayor. And so, like, is that something that the county should be doing? I don't know if I see the county solid waste management plan just so that we're preemptive and not being reactionary in terms of waste management. But my core question is, when does the current contract end?
So the current contract expires in 2029, and it includes a clause to allow for an extension of 5 years. And it seems like, I think that DEF and the county executive are banking on extending that contract and kicking the can further down the road. But if this incinerator makes it to 2029 when that contract is up, it will be tied as the oldest incinerator in the entire country. We are not that lucky, Westchester County. Like, I would not want to have my be like flying in the airplane that is the oldest airplane in the United States of America. It wouldn't matter if they told me, like, oh, we upgraded it and we maintain it properly and whatever. It's like, no, thank you. So 2029, it expires, but likely in the past, like from what we can tell, they usually start renegotiating it 18 months in advance. I don't know if with this 5-year extension, that will allow them to not have to renegotiate and they'll just want to extend it again. So there's that. And then, yes, the county is supposed to have a municipal solid waste plan filed with DEC. It is very, like, how many, Caitlin, do you know how many years overdue it even is, the municipal solid waste plan?
I don't know how many,
I'm
but quite
pretty
a
sure
few.
it's years
Yeah,
overdue.
like significantly overdue, right?
Yeah. So, because it's been multiple years that we've been asking about it and looking for it. And on the DEC website now, it says that it's in like, it's being revised or something. Like the county submitted it, DEC
Right.
provided comments, and it's kicked back to the county for revisions. So it is not available for us to look at. But yeah, so I mean, and when we should start planning for the to move away is like 2019. Like we should have started planning in like going back a while now to be ready to not renew this contract because right now we're talking the 2026 budget. That's, 3 years until that contract is going to be up. And we can do dramatic like communities that actually commit to zero waste, they see massive reductions in waste in the first couple of years. And we're talking like 50 or 60% reduction in waste in just 2 years. So, like, we could go a long way in the 3 years that we have, but we wouldn't get to a place where we would be independent of the incinerator. And then it's also important for everyone to know that when our elected officials negotiated this contract, and I use the word negotiated very loosely, they included a clause that when the contract was not renewed, the county would sell the incinerator to Wind Waste for a single American dollar. $1 it would be sold. And when I asked, why would you do that? They said, well, they would have been profiting off of it. And so we'd sell it to them so that they would decommission it. So my follow-up question, and I'm no lawyer, I'm just the scientist. I said, well, is there a clause in there saying that they have to decommission it? No. So they could just buy it for $1 and continue to burn, and they could take whatever they wanted. And other communities have been faced with incinerators taking PFAS contaminated soil, medical waste, chemical waste, and being burned. So the county has done a huge disservice, not only to the residents of Peekskill, but to the taxpayers who are paying 28 million a year for this incinerator and then will just effectively give it away if it doesn't fail first. And we have a lot of people in multiple levels of government in the state that have voted for these various contracts over the 40 plus years that it has been in place and have left us with this legacy. But you know better, you do better. And that's why we're working to educate these elected officials of just what's going on because whoever's in office when this fails is going to be left holding the bag. Other questions or comments, ideas, clarifications about did everybody submit a comment? We can drop that link back in the chat again.
Courtney, Donna had a question about what does the county do now to help municipalities with food scrap recycling? Do they provide
Sure.
hardware and hauling costs?
Yeah, so right now I believe it's free. Like the count, like if you compost or you recycle food scraps, you don't pay. If you haul food scraps to the incinerator and dump it there, you have to pay. So the county, it's called the RFSTAD, the
I
Residential
just
Food
dropped a
Scrap
link in.
Transportation
Yep.
and Disposal Program. Yeah, Caitlin dropped that link there. So communities can actually save money. And one of the things we're thinking of in our like municipal outreach is kind of helping them do that calculation. Is that food scraps traditionally are expensive to burn because they're heavy because they're wet. So if you are paying by the ton to dump your garbage, you don't want to be hauling a lot of food scraps and paying to dump them by the ton when you could conceivably compost them and not pay. So communities can save money in that regard, by diverting the food scraps. So there is, a carrot there, like Nick was kind of asking. Like there's a carrot there to get them to do the food scraps recycling. But as I said, like it's kind of a hassle for a lot of people, because all but Scarsdale, you have to go drop it off somewhere. And so what we need to do is just make it low entry, low bar to compliance, and allow people to put their food scraps out on the curb to get picked up just like they would any other recycling. Um, and yes, Donna said, I am being told that our village can't expand our program because of budget. And we ran up, I mean, honestly, I don't know what the budget is. Like, if you just have a drop off location, like, what costs more? Like, more receptacles or something? Like, there's not a person manning the drop off. So I'm not sure what their objection would be. We did have some trouble in Peekskill, same thing of like, we can't just collect it on Saturdays. It should just be all the time, anytime, go drop it off. But the other thing is, and we're looking for resources to provide, is historically the DEC, Department of Environmental Conservation, has a lot of grants. I say historically because all bets are off right now, but has a lot of grants for waste, around waste and garbage, that don't get distributed because municipalities and orgs don't apply for them. So, and if communities want to do climate smart communities and want to become like bronze, silver, gold climate smart, they can get points for doing the curbside. They can get points for food scraps recycling, recycle other kinds of recycling programs, diversion programs, earn you points, which then allow you to qualify for better, more larger grants. So there are grants available for the kinds of things that you would need to implement and expand these programs. And I believe Cortland was looking at one to get an electric truck that would collect the food scraps, which would lower emissions from the collection and stuff. But that's where the county could be doing something. Like each municipality doesn't necessarily need its own truck to just go, if it's just going to go around once a week. Like we should be having the county help us and get the refuse district have whatever, 8 trucks, and they're on the road every day of the week visiting the different municipalities collecting the food scraps. There's ways to streamline this. We just lack the leadership and the vision, frankly. Judy, your hand is up.
I was wondering if some study money from the county could be used to hire a consultant who would educate everyone in the county as to why they should do this and how to get enthusiastic about it and how to do it, and maybe cite some other municipality that has taken solid waste, zero waste steps and has been successful with it. I have no idea how you reach everybody except through social media, which, of course, being a woman of a certain age is beyond me. But it can be done, I think. And I think that would be, if people really got it and understood that it's easy and it's desirable and it would save them money, especially prevent them from having to pay more money to for throwing away their garbage, people would drive it and it would happen.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
the
so I
county
think
would deal with
Yeah.
with the wheelabrator in a sensible way.
I'm sure that education will be a component of the recommendations of the consultant that they hired. I think that, but I think hand in hand with that are, because you said it's easy, but it's not easy for everyone, right? So like if you live in an apartment building and your landlord doesn't provide the recycling the dumpster for recycling and the dumpster for trash, and you just get one dumpster. You're just putting everything in there because what else are you supposed to do? Store the stuff in your apartment and drive it to the DPW garage or whatever. So, like, we need to do the education piece, but we also need to make sure that the infrastructure is there for people, and we need to make it as simple as possible. Like the KISS, keep it simple, stupid. We need to keep it as simple as possible. And like every garbage, where there's a garbage can, there should be a recycling receptacle and a compost bin and whatever. And then we can educate people like what goes in what. And there's a remarkable amount of scientific literature looking at human behavior and like what works. Like, because I've been at, we table at all these events, and where was I? Croton Earth Day. And they had like every conceivable thing, like divert it. Like there was the food compost, there was regular garbage, there was recycling for like glass and metal and plastic. And watched people walk up and be like, oh, wait, there's like 7 things here. I don't know. And then just put everything in the regular garbage. So that we need to know like what's the psychology of how this works and like how to get people to do it right. Because I guess I'm also reminded of like somebody said asking like a park ranger, like, how do you keep bears out of the garbage? And they were like, there's remarkably little to separate the smartest bear from the dumbest human in terms of like how to get in a bear-proof garbage bin or whatever. So I kind of think of that when people like are overwhelmed and they don't know, but it's not hard to learn. Kids learn it all the time. Kids, like Croton schools, Peekskill schools, Hastings schools have all done programs to teach kids how to do the like food scraps recycling and stuff like that. So it's totally doable, but we need the county to be willing to do it. And if our Department of Environmental Facilities, or another saying, when all you have is a hammer, everything is a nail. And right now, all we have is a trash incinerator and everything is garbage. And we need to have the compost. We need to have the recovery facilities. We need to have these different options so that we're not just with a nail or with a hammer nailing everything. We need to say, like, we have these alternatives. So yeah, we've got to move. Frankly, we really need to move the county executive on this. So I think we're approaching the end of our time. We actually might be a couple minutes over. Sorry about that, but excellent discussion. I'm just going to go back to my screen share really quick, just to remind everyone, 12/3, watch your email. We'll send you all the info and we'll be there too. And requesting you all, like, so many good ideas came out of tonight. We'd love to have, if people want to get more involved, we have our core group meetings at 6 o'clock on Wednesdays. And we also have like another kind of work meeting Mondays at 2:30 that people are welcome to join. Just reach out to me or on social media via email. And then our next meeting will be that special work session on December 17th, 6 p.m., where we want to kind of brainstorm and work out what are going to be our priorities for 2026 that's going to really move the needle on this. So thank you all for coming and your time. Very much appreciated. And I will hopefully see you all on the 17th. Have a lovely Thanksgiving break. And yeah, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.